All right, YouTube, this is Barn on 11970. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you guys are enjoying your day. All right, guys, I'm going to do a little bit different type of video when it comes to fiat currencies. If you've been watching, especially my recent videos, you can see I've not been too pro quo on Bitcoins, and as a matter of fact, I am not happy with any type of fiat currency, which includes the US dollar, the euro, anything of that nature. And I'm going to give you a little history about how things in the past that may seem strange to us today were extremely popular and were used as a currency to the point where people were making lots of money, and then, like all fiat currencies, they one day disappear. And this is what I want people to really be careful about and really think about. Now, what is a fiat currency? If you don't know because you're new to this, and that's why I'm talking about this, people that have been following my channel for a while or other people's channels are very familiar with fiat, but I don't want to assume that everybody who watches my videos is somebody that's experienced in this. So even if there's one person that doesn't know, that's one more person that is educated in this system. Basically, in a nutshell, a fiat currency is any currency that is not backed by anything, like, for example, gold. As a matter of fact, the United States of America had a gold standard. Now, what does that mean? That means that for every amount of dollars that they were producing, they had to have a certain amount of gold to back it up. Basically, what that did was it kept places like the Federal Reserve and the government fiscally responsible. Now, in 1971, Richard Nixon convinced the entire world to get off the gold standard, so all currencies throughout the world became a fiat system, which basically means they're printing money out of thin air. They can print as much as they want because there's nothing that has to be backing it up. And that's why you're seeing such incredibly high deficits in the past few years, especially. Because what happens is, as you see over time with fiat currencies, because they become very irresponsible and there's a lot of greed, they print more and more of it, which devalues the currency. You need more of it to make purchases. So you see things with the illusion of getting more expensive, when in fact it's just that the printing of the money has become so devalued that you need more and more of it to make a purchase. So that's the illusion. Now, there is no exception currently throughout the world because people all are using a fiat-based system. Now, people are trying to get alternative ways to get out of that dollar system, euro system, yens, all the fiat systems. The one I highly recommend, because it's been used throughout history and is what money was used to have backing it up, is gold and silver, physical gold and silver. Now, there are other people out there that have tried and are trying currently different types of ways to get out of the dollar. Now, they are good ideas, but if you've ever heard the phrase drowning in good intention, I'm going to explain another old fiat currency that you may have heard of, and it's going to seem very strange, but it was actually a currency and people were making tons of money off of it. But like any fiat system, it has a shelf life, and one day it just disappears. And if you're left basically holding the bag, there's nothing you can do. So, without further ado, I'm going to read this article. This is true. Well, as far as I know, I mean, I wasn't born back in the 1600s, so I can't verify it in that aspect. But there are plenty of articles and there are plenty of books about this. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is an actual event. Anybody that lived up until the point of the 1600s and still alive today, please let me know if there's any different point of view from your perspective. And, of course, I will post the link on this. All right, so here we go. And now get ready. This is a real currency. Now, this title of this article is called The Dutch Tulip Bubble of 1632. And yes, when I say tulip, I mean the flower. So let's get into this article. All right, the latter part of the 20th century saw its share of odd financial bubbles. There was the real estate bubble, the stock market bubble, and the dot-com bubble, just to name a few. In each instance of price inflation, people paid exorbitant amounts for things that shouldn't have been worth anything like the going price. And each time people stood around afterwards and said, "What were we thinking?" One has to believe that the same thought occurred to the Dutch in the 17th century when they settled down after their bout with Tulip Mania, wherein the humble tulip bulb began to sell for prices to make New York realtors blush. As much as the tulip is associated with Holland, it is not native there. Rather, it was introduced in 1593 by a botanist named Carolus Clausius, who brought it from Constantinople. He planted a small garden, intending to research the plant for medicinal purposes. Had his neighbors been morally upright, the tulip might still be a rare exotic in a gardening world. Instead, they broke into his garden and stole some of his bulbs in order to make some quick money, and in the process started the Dutch bulb trade. Over the next several decades, tulips became a fad of the rich of Holland, and prices began to mount. Soon even ordinary bulbs were selling for extraordinary prices, and the actual rare bulbs were astronomical. A single viceroy tulip would sell for 2,500 florins, a value roughly equivalent to $1,250 in current American dollars. Now just imagine that. That's in the 1600s. Just imagine somebody selling one bulb for $1,250 today. Even now, that's a lot of money. All right. While a rarer Semper Augustus bulb could easily go for twice that amount. One particularly amusing exchange showed the goods traded for one bulb. Get this, somebody traded one bulb for this. The lengthy list includes, among other things, a bed, a complete suit of clothes, and 1,000 pounds of cheese. That is for one tulip bulb. At the height of the mania, in what seems a complete loss of sanity, the bulbs were deemed too valuable to risk planting by their formerly wealthy purchasers, and it became popular to display the plain ungrown bulbs. In at least one instance, the plan for safety backfired when a visiting sailor mistook a tulip bulb for an onion and proceeded to eat it for breakfast. Expensive breakfast. The height of the bubble was reached in the winter of 1636 to 1637. Tulip traders were making and losing fortunes regularly. Now get this, a good trader could earn up to 60,000 florins in a single month. That's approximately $61,710 adjusted to U.S. current dollars. $61,000 a month. Even today, that's a pretty good deal. All right. With profits like that to be had, nothing local governments could do could stop the frenzy of trading. Then one day in, it says Harlem, a buyer failed to show up and pay for his bulb purchase. The ensuing panic spread across Holland, and within days, tulip bulbs were worth only 1/100th of their former prices. The tulip bubble had burst. Looking back through time, it's easy to laugh at the foolish Dutch, paying such prices for simple tulip bulbs. But an economic bubble was nothing new even then. We're still doing the same sort of things today. Now, listen to this last part of this paragraph, because this is important. Human beings have always been prone to want things that are difficult to get, especially if everyone else seems to be doing it. Nutty behavior becomes commonplace when enough people are following along. It's only afterwards that we stand back and shake our heads and wonder what came over us. All right, guys, so like I said, I will post a link on that, but I want you to really think about that. When it comes to something like, for example, Bitcoins, and I know people are going to get angry, they're going to get defensive, there's nothing I can do about that. History shows that fiat currencies, all fiat currencies, come and go. They will have their time because the enthusiasm of the people and the ability to make fast money is it draws people in. But it doesn't last forever. And like any collapse, it goes like that. So at one moment, you could be on cloud nine making thousands of dollars on your investment. And the next thing you know, it comes crashing down and you lose everything. And what happens is it builds a frenzy and the people keep it going for a little while. Because like you saw, That tulip situation was not just a couple of days, wasn't a couple of weeks, it wasn't even a year. It lasted for decades. So we have to be careful about this. I understand people want to get out of the US dollar. They want to break the Federal Reserve. I understand that. But when you take something like Bitcoins, for example, because that's the current thing that people are talking about. Oh, some people are even talking about that more than gold and silver right now. It's going to get you money. This should not be about making money. If you are doing this to make money, you're in it for the wrong reasons, and you're going to potentially lose. Because one day, even Bitcoins are going to get to a certain amount, and we don't know when that level will be or what that level will be. But one day, something's going to happen, and it's going to come crashing down just like the tulip did. And if you don't think that can happen, you are not researching history. Now, the reason I prefer physical gold and silver is because it has been tested throughout time. It is part of history. As a matter of fact, all currencies start out with either a gold coin, or when they use paper currency, they started out with backing it up with gold. So what that tells you is it has monetary value. It is money. It's just not being used as money now by the common man. But we notice that banks, countries, the Federal Reserve, they store gold. And they're giving us, the common man and woman, paper currency that only has value because they've deemed it to have value. So Bitcoins, I understand why people want to do it. The right people that are doing it to try and get out of a corrupt dollar system, I understand it. But that is going to be in a bubble because it is not based on anything tangible. Things like gold and silver are used. They have been tested through the length of time all the way back to the Egyptians. So I understand people want to try and find a currency to get out of the dollar. I hate to say it to people who have spent money on this. Bitcoins will have their time. There will be money to be made for some people. But there will come a day when it will come crashing down, and it will be just like the tulips were back in the 1600s. And just think 400 years from now, when somebody talks about how people invested in a digital currency that did not even technically exist other than what was on a computer screen, and they might think it's just as funny to them as we would think a bunch of flowers and tulip bulbs were to us. So that might be something to consider about this. Physical gold and silver is the best way to break the Federal Reserve and the banks. It will take time, but because silver and gold have finite amounts, it's just a matter of time. And unlike a bulb of a flower, they do not wilt and die. And unlike Bitcoins, you can hold them in your hand. So that might be something to consider. That is why, even with these dips, even with them controlling it based on the paper prices, I don't worry one bit. And as a matter of fact, I expect to see another dip in the gold and silver market, which means for me, I'm waiting to make another big purchase. Well, big purchase for me, not like I'm making thousands of dollars worth of ounces in a minute, but I'm waiting for a nice little dip. So Bitcoins is having its moment. I understand why people want it, but this is nothing more than a different type of fiat currency, and there are people who are very greedy. Now, I'm not talking about the average person that's buying a couple of them. I'm talking about people like Max Kaiser and the people behind the scenes who bought at rocket low prices, building it up because they can affect thousands of people with their YouTube channels and other ways that they talk about it and influence the market. They're going to get out. And when the big players in the Bitcoin market, they get out, it's going to come tumbling down. People are going to panic, and that's when you're going to see it end. And that's why things like gold and silver right now is the best opportunity to buy. Wait for that next dip to come, because right now people are not excited about it. They're starting to get excited about Bitcoins because everybody's talking about it. Do you want to be part of a fad, or do you want to be part of a solution? I leave that up to you. Now, I'm sure I will get very angry people from Bitcoins or other people out there who love the dollar or the euro, and that's absolutely fine. My job here is not to convince you what to do. I'm here to give information, and what you want to do with it is totally up to you. If we all work together, we can fight the system. If we all go in separate directions, it's the simple technique of divide and conquer, which has been working throughout the test of time. So I leave it up to you guys. I'm looking forward to that next dip in gold and silver because it's not going to stay that way. I tell people all the time, it's just like playing a pinball machine. In order for that ball to launch forward, you have to pull it back. But once it snaps forward, game on. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Read that article if you want. Check out, I'm sure there's plenty of others on that information about the tulips being actual money. And realize, guys, fiat currencies have a shelf life. Don't be stuck at the end. Peace.